Just a few years later, that same brain enters a classroom
Second thing I asked you to make was what sound? Aw.
where everything depends on learning to read.
Say boyhood.
It's box number 7.
Across America, a crisis has been unfolding. Only about 1/3 of 4th and 8th graders are reading at grade level.
Boy, toy.
For many children of color, that number drops to nearly 15%.
He wanted to know.
For decades, we've assumed children would simply learn to read.
What spelling pattern are we using?
O-I-O-Y.
But science now tells us that assumption was wrong.
Box 3 and box 4, you can divide into 2 separate pieces. I am blessed to be a 2nd grade teacher but 5 different ways.
Allison Taylor teaches 2nd grade at A.L. Burris Elementary School in Marietta.
What's in your number 6 box?
But until 5 years ago,
When you're looking at the front, what have they given us?
she says she wasn't taught how to teach reading at all.
It was just all about the feelings of reading and the hopes of reading and finding really good authors, and not really about how the brain learns to read or what the brain needs to do to become a strong reader.
For years, classrooms across the country followed a method known as balanced literacy, focused on exposure to books, memorization, and context. The idea was simple. If children loved reading, they would eventually learn how to do it.
And so we just spent time hoping and wishing and leaning on parents to do the work, to read with kids at home, to, practice heart words with your child.
But many children never did. They struggled, fell behind, and too often were left without answers. That uncertainty didn't just affect academics, it affected confidence, behavior, and a child's future.
All of the work in Marietta changed, quite honestly, with one phone call.
But we know what to do.
That call came from the head of the Atlanta Speech School, educator Comer Yates, who asked Marietta School Superintendent Grant Rivera how much did he know about the science of how kids learn to read and how they develop their reading brain.
Comer said, listen, there's a better way to do this. And it starts at birth, and it goes all the way through elementary school. And if we lean into the science and the research, we could create a model in Marietta that really becomes the model for the entire country. Are you interested? And he had me at hello.
Good morning.
From that moment on, Marietta committed fully. Every principal, every teacher, every classroom. 5 years ago, Marietta schools switched to structured literacy, also known as the science of reading.
So structured literacy is really about a systematic and explicit way to teach students to read. And all that means is we know that children learn to read using sounds, using letters, and then creating those sounds and letters to make words, and then those words to make sentences, and then those sentences to build fluency, and then that fluency to build comprehension. Yes, toys, what word? Enjoy, good job.
Instead of guessing words or memorizing them, students are taught how language actually works, how letters represent sounds, how sounds build words, and how words build meaning.
I teach you what sounds are and what letters make the sounds. And then as long as you can do that, then you can make a word. And if you can make a word, you can make a sentence, and then we can build from that. But the foundation is that phonics piece, is that phonological understanding.
The difference, students aren't guessing anymore, they're decoding. And for teachers like Taylor, the difference was not without sadness.
So there was almost like a mourning process for the teaching practices, but also for like the students that we realize now we could have helped and we didn't. And that's hard for teachers. That's hard for us to say, like, I was working so hard and I wasn't doing a good job.
When Marietta started imagining how... I remember sitting at the table with a group of leaders and community partners 5.5 years ago. I said to them at the time, if we can do this right, it will be the most important work I do in my entire career. And I didn't understand a fraction of how significant it was going to be.
A scientist!
With success comes something powerful, confidence, because when children can read, they no longer have to hide from it.
It's changed everything.
This wasn't about preference, it was about science. A.L. Burris principal Jillian Johnson.
I knew that we had so far to go. I mean, our data was just so disappointing because our teachers were working really hard, like really hard, just not doing the right work. They didn't know. We didn't know that it wasn't the right work.
Administrators got trained first, spending 5 days with national literacy expert Dr. Margie Gillis.
I've been doing this work for 47 years.
It was the most impactful professional learning of my career, of my life. And so we spent 5 full days with Dr. Margie Gillis learning about how the brain learns to read, learning about the science of reading, learning how to implement it. So we didn't just get the science, we got the how.
So what did you put in?
The training changed how Rivera taught his own children.
I went home after my first training with the science of reading, and I grabbed all the sight words that Grandpa had purchased for the kids, and I threw them all in the trash.
At A.L. Burris Elementary, the results over the past 5 years have been dramatic.
So pre-COVID, and we had, in students in grades 3 through 5, we had about 55% of students reading at or above grade level. And this past year, in 2025, the assessments showed us that we now have 80% of our students reading at or above grade level. So remarkable growth in 8 years, and it's just, we still have a long way to go.
And it's not just academics.
Additionally, our actually tracked our student behavior referral data from 2019 to, I think the last time I pulled it was in 2024. We had a 90% reduction in specifically classroom disruptions. 90% reduction, because children are getting what they need, exactly what they need, the way that they need it. Children want to learn. They don't want to make poor choices or disrupt class.
Because when children succeed, everything changes.
Early on, when he was not absorbing the alphabet, the sounds of the alphabet, and it just wasn't coming more naturally like with his classmates, he was behind in understanding just even letters. So we knew something was going on.
For families like the Gillens, reading struggles were deeply personal.
He was only reading a few letters and then just guessing at what the word was.
After breakfast, me and Mr. Lewis.
What looked like behavior in Neil Dean was frustration.
He was getting in trouble at school just because he was goofing off, because he may not understand what was going on.
Then everything changed.
It's about a boy that lived through the Great Depression. The little girl, Kim, talked with milk running down her throat.
They were able to identify what was going on in his brain and pinpoint and teach the way he needed to be taught so that he could learn and move forward.
I can't tell you how proud I am.
With structured literacy, teachers could finally see the problem and fix it.
It helped me read, and then I didn't know to sound out the syllables and then find the different word parts in the letters, and then that really helped for the bigger words.
And with that came confidence.
I feel good. I like to read like every time. Lefty Lewis noticed I was.
The wars are over. Balanced literacy, balanced reading, lost. Structured literacy is the science.
Today, more than 40 states have passed laws requiring the science of reading, but change is slow, and millions of children are still being taught the old way.
It's not wired into our brains to learn to read. We have to have explicit instruction by well-informed teachers.
Reading is not natural. The brain must build new pathways connecting sound, symbol, and meaning. But when it does, it unlocks something powerful: freedom and agency.
Reading literacy should be considered a basic human right because it gives the foundation for the release of the potential of every individual. It's not that reading will absolutely affirm that potential, but it allows that potential to be released.
For decades, national reading scores have stagnated or declined, but some places like Marietta schools are showing what's possible. In Mississippi, one of the first states to fully embrace the science of reading, 4th grade reading scores have surged. The state has gone from near last in the nation to the top 10, with students outperforming the national average. And the gains didn't just raise scores, they closed gaps. Low-income students now rank among the best readers in the country.
In a knowledge economy and an information age, it is literally the key that unlocks the future for our children, whether it be digital literacy, financial literacy, even health literacy. If children are not literate, they don't have much of a life. When we look at the prison system, it's a perfect example of why this is so high stakes.
Literacy changes everything, and now we know how to unlock it.
Every child deserves to be a reader. It opens up every door of their life. It's everything.
And that's going to do it for us this week. See you next time on Your Fantastic Mind.